The revolving doors of the Grand Crest Hotel spun slowly under the golden glow of the chandeliered lobby. Business travelers in tailored suits moved briskly past bellhops pushing luggage carts. The air smelled of polished marble and fresh coffee, the kind of place that promised comfort to those who could afford it. Through the entrance walked Marcus Reed, a tall, calm black man in his early 30s, dressed casually but neatly, jeans, a navy jacket, and a simple leather duffel over his shoulder. To anyone else, he looked like another guest passing through for a weekend stay. No one could tell, just by looking, that Marcus had built a multi-million-dollar hospitality group from scratch, or that he was the silent owner behind the very chain of hotels he had once been denied entry to years before. But Marcus didn't come here to impress anyone. He just wanted a quiet night after a long week of travel. At the front desk stood Richard Cole, the hotel's general manager, mid-40s, sharply dressed, and known among his staff for his short temper and shorter patience. He was checking something on his tablet when Marcus approached. "Good evening," Marcus said pleasantly. "A reservation for Reed." Richard didn't look up right away. "Name again?" "Marcus Reed." The manager tapped a few keys, frowning. I don't see that here. Are you sure this is the right hotel?" Marcus kept his tone calm. "Yes, sir. Booked it online this morning." Richard sighed loudly, the kind of sigh meant to be heard. "You people always think you've got something booked. What site did you even use?" Marcus blinked, a little thrown. "Excuse me?" The receptionist beside Richard froze, eyes darting between them. Richard leaned an elbow on the counter. "Now look, we've had a problem lately with fake reservations. Maybe try one of the budget hotels down the street." A couple standing nearby looked over. Marcus felt the weight of their stares. Curious, judgmental, silent. His jaw tightened, but he kept his voice level. "Sir, there must be a mistake. Can you please check again?" Richard rolled his eyes and muttered, "Unbelievable," before snatching the tablet from the counter. He typed with exaggerated frustration. "Reed, Marcus," he repeated mockingly. Then he frowned again. "Ah, here it is. Huh. Must have been entered wrong. You booked a suite?" "Yes," Marcus said evenly. Richard raised an eyebrow. "That's one of our premium rooms. Are you sure you can afford—" The receptionist, Hannah, cut in quickly, her voice nervous. "Room 903 is ready, sir. Should I bring the key card?" Richard waved her off. "I'll handle it." Then, lowering his voice, he added, "I don't care if the system says he has a reservation. Next time, check before letting anyone just walk in." Marcus heard it, every word. For a moment, he stood there silently, his eyes locked on the manager's. Not angry, not loud, just disappointed. Finally, he said quietly, "I'll make sure your message reaches the right people." Richard scoffed. "Yeah, sure. Whatever that means." Marcus took his key card and walked toward the elevator. As the doors closed behind him, Hannah looked at her boss in disbelief. "Sir, that was—" "Don't start," Richard snapped. "If corporate asks, we were following protocol." He turned back to his tablet, completely unaware that the man he had just insulted was not only in the system, but above it, because in less than 24 hours, Marcus Reed would be sitting in the hotel's executive office, and Richard Cole would be the one standing on the other side of the desk. The elevator glided smoothly to the top floor of the Grand Crest Hotel. Marcus stepped out into the quiet hallway, where the carpet muffled his footsteps. His suite door opened with a soft click, revealing a room fit for royalty. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline, a marble desk, and a welcome bottle of champagne waiting on ice. He didn't touch any of it. He set his duffel down, walked to the window, and stared out over the city lights. His reflection in the glass looked calm, but his mind was restless. Marcus had faced prejudice before. He'd learned long ago to let people underestimate him, because more often than not, they told him who they were, not who he was. But what happened downstairs had cut deeper than usual. This wasn't just ignorance, it was entitlement. The kind that thrived in silence. He opened his laptop and sent a short email. To Corporate HQ, Operations. Subject, Unannounced Site Visit, Grand Crest, Chicago. Please schedule a full staff audit tomorrow morning. I'll be conducting it personally. MR. He hit send and closed the laptop. The next morning at 8 a.m., the hotel lobby buzzed with unease. A corporate team from headquarters had arrived unexpectedly, wearing suits and badges. The staff whispered nervously behind the counter as the district operations director, Ms. Clara Jennings, arrived with her team. Corporate inspection, she announced briskly. The owners requested it personally. Richard Cole, the general manager, straightened his tie and tried to act unfazed. Inspection? No one told me anything about that. Clara smiled faintly. That's kind of the point, Mr. Cole. He followed her toward the elevator, trying to keep his composure. So, who's the owner? I've never actually met him. You will soon, Clara said simply. When the doors opened on the top floor, they stepped out into the executive suite area. The door to room 903 was slightly ajar. Inside, Marcus sat at the desk, reviewing a stack of reports. He looked completely at ease, calm, composed, in control. Richard's steps faltered. His voice came out in a near whisper. That's the guest from last night. Clara gave a curt nod. Mr. Marcus Reed, founder and principal owner of Grand Crest Hotels. Richard's mouth went dry. The color drained from his face. He felt the blood rush to his ears as Marcus looked up from his papers. Good morning, Mr. Cole, Marcus said evenly. I trust your night was restful. I didn't know, Richard stammered. No, Marcus interrupted, his voice calm but firm. You didn't. And that's the problem. The silence in the room was heavy. Clara stood with her arms crossed, watching quietly. Marcus continued. Last night, you assumed a lot about me before I said more than 3 words. You didn't look at the reservation. You didn't look at the system. You looked at me. And you decided I didn't belong here. Richard's hands trembled slightly. Mr. Reed, I swear, that's not what I... Marcus held up a hand. Stop. I'm not here to humiliate you. I'm here to make sure you understand the damage that kind of behavior causes. Not just to me, but to this brand. He stood up, his presence commanding but never angry. You see, when I started this company, I wanted every Grand Crest hotel to be a place where everyone felt respected, from the CEO to the janitor to the guest walking in off the street. Because respect is what gives a place its value. Without it, we're just a building with rooms. Richard swallowed hard. I understand, sir. I truly do. Please let me make it right. Marcus studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. You'll have that chance. But not as a manager, not yet. You'll spend the next month in training at one of our community partner hotels. Learn what hospitality actually means. Richard's face fell, but he didn't argue. He just nodded quietly. Yes, sir. Marcus turned to Clara. Make sure his replacement understands our company values before they step into this role. Yes, Mr. Reed, she said. As the others filed out, Marcus returned to the window, looking out once again at the city below. He felt the weight of what had just happened. Not satisfaction, but resolve. Moments later, he heard a soft knock. It was the young receptionist, Hannah, standing nervously in the doorway. Sir, she said softly, I just wanted to say thank you for how you handled that. He's been like that with other guests before. Marcus smiled gently. Then I hope he learns something this time. Everyone deserves a chance to grow, even the ones who've forgotten what respect looks like. She smiled back, relief washing over her face. When she left, Marcus took a deep breath and finally allowed himself to relax. He'd built his empire not to be admired, but to prove a point. That dignity could be the strongest foundation of all. And that morning, in the very hotel that had tried to belittle him, he'd reminded everyone what true ownership really looked like. A week later, the Grand Crest corporate headquarters in downtown Chicago buzzed with quiet anticipation. Executives filed into the glass-walled conference room on the top floor, the same team that once prided itself on profit margins and 5-star reviews. But this meeting was different. It wasn't about expansion or revenue. It was about values. At the head of the long oak table sat Marcus Reed, dressed in his usual understated style. No flashy watch, no designer tie, just quiet confidence and authority that didn't need to be announced. He glanced at the clock. Right on time. Thank you all for coming, he began, his voice steady, but carrying a weight that commanded attention. As most of you know, I had an unplanned visit to one of our hotels last week. What I saw there reminded me of something I thought we'd already achieved, and clearly, we haven't. No one dared to interrupt. Marcus leaned forward, resting his forearms on the table. We say we're a brand built on hospitality, but hospitality isn't about decor. It's not about luxury or stars on a rating site. It's about how people feel the moment they walk through our doors. He paused, scanning the room. Last week, one of our own general managers looked me in the eye and treated me like I didn't belong. Not because of who I was, but because of what he saw. That tells me we've failed somewhere. Not just in training, but in culture. A murmur went through the room. A few managers shifted uncomfortably. So here's what's going to happen, Marcus continued. Starting today, every Grand Crest employee, from top to bottom, will complete a human dignity and empathy certification program. It won't be optional. You won't just learn how to handle guests. You'll learn how to see them. One executive, an older man named Paul, raised a hand hesitantly. Sir, with all due respect, we already have diversity and inclusion workshops. They're part of our annual compliance training. Marcus smiled faintly. Yes, I've seen those. PowerPoint slides and attendance sheets don't change hearts, Paul. Experience does. He clicked a remote, and the large screen behind him flickered to life, showing footage of hotel staff volunteering at community centers, listening to local stories, even staying as guests at budget inns for empathy exercises. This program will be immersive, Marcus said. Our leaders will spend time outside their comfort zones. You'll meet people from all backgrounds, not as clients, but as equals. Until we understand them, we can't serve anyone. The room fell silent. Slowly, some of the executives nodded. Then Marcus added, and there's one more change. He looked toward the far end of the table, where Hannah, the young receptionist from the Chicago hotel, sat nervously. She'd been invited at Marcus's request, a surprise to everyone else. This, Marcus said, gesturing toward her, is Hannah Fields. She'll be assisting the corporate guest relations department starting next month. Because when the people who understand kindness best work at the top, everyone benefits. Hannah's eyes widened. Sir, I don't know what to say. Marcus smiled. Say yes. You've earned it. The room broke into light applause, but behind the clapping was something deeper. Reflection. For the first time in years, the executives weren't just thinking about profits or ratings. They were thinking about impact. As the meeting ended, Marcus stood by the window, the city stretching far below him. The same city that had once told him no, that had once doubted him. Clara Jennings, his operations director, stepped up beside him. You know, Marcus, she said softly, you could have fired Richard on the spot. No one would have blamed you. Marcus shook his head. Maybe. But firing someone doesn't fix a system. Teaching them does. He's still in retraining. I hope he learns something. Clara nodded. And if he doesn't? Marcus smiled slightly, eyes still on the skyline. Then the world will teach him eventually. The two stood in silence for a moment, watching sunlight reflect off the glass towers, a quiet symbol of what Marcus had built. Not just hotels, but opportunities to rise above hate and ignorance. Because to him, true success wasn't about owning the most. It was about changing what ownership means. 6 months later, the Grand Crest Chicago looked different. Not in structure. The marble floors still gleamed, the chandelier still shone, the air still smelled faintly of citrus and polish, but in spirit. There was a new warmth in the air, something invisible yet deeply felt. Staff smiled more easily. Guests lingered at the front desk without tension. The lobby finally felt like hospitality, and that morning, as a black sedan pulled up to the front entrance, the team straightened instinctively. Marcus Reed stepped out, dressed simply in a dark blazer and open-collared shirt. He hadn't announced his return. No corporate entourage, no cameras. Just him, the man who had walked through those same doors months ago, treated like a nuisance in his own building. The first person to spot him was Hannah, now confidently standing behind the front desk in her new corporate badge. Her eyes lit up. Mr. Reed, she said with genuine joy. Marcus smiled warmly. Good to see you again, Hannah. How's the new role treating you? She laughed softly. Busy, but I'm learning more than I ever thought I would. Thank you again for believing in me. You earned it, Marcus said. Belief only works when it's mutual. A few guests looked over curiously, sensing the familiarity between them. But before Marcus could say more, a voice came from across the lobby, hesitant, quiet, but familiar. Mr. Reed. It was Richard Cole, the former general manager. He walked toward Marcus slowly, wearing a plain uniform, not the tailored suit he used to favor, but the modest attire of an assistant operations manager. His posture had changed. Less arrogance, more humility. He stopped a few feet away, eyes down for a moment before meeting Marcus's gaze. "I wasn't sure you'd come back here," he said. Marcus studied him carefully, then smiled faintly. "I wasn't sure either." Richard took a breath. "I wanted to say thank you for not firing me, for sending me to the Southside branch. It was—" He paused, searching for words. "Eye-opening." Marcus nodded. "It was supposed to be. I worked with people I'd never even spoken to before," Richard continued. "Families who live paycheck to paycheck, but still find ways to smile. Guests who treated me with more patience than I ever gave them. It changed me." The honesty in his voice was real, not rehearsed, not performative. Marcus folded his arms lightly. "So, what did you learn?" Richard met his eyes. "That respect isn't earned by authority. It's given through humanity. And that this hotel's walls aren't made of marble. They're made of people." For a long moment, Marcus said nothing. Then he reached out his hand. "That's a good lesson, Mr. Cole." Richard shook it, his voice steady. "I don't deserve a second chance, sir. But I promise I won't waste it." "Good," Marcus said. "Because leadership isn't about never failing. It's about what you do after you fail." Behind them, the receptionist smiled discreetly. Guests watched as the two men, one once dismissed, the other humbled, stood side by side, shaking hands beneath the same chandelier that had silently witnessed their first encounter. A few hours later, Marcus sat in the corner cafe of the hotel, sipping black coffee and observing quietly. The staff moved with purpose and kindness. He saw Richard guiding a young trainee patiently, not barking orders, but explaining. He saw Hannah helping a family check in, kneeling beside a child to help tie her shoelaces. The transformation wasn't flashy. It was quiet, genuine, and lasting. When Marcus finally stood to leave, Hannah hurried over. "Leaving already?" He nodded. "You've got it handled here." She smiled proudly. "We're just getting started." As Marcus walked toward the revolving doors, sunlight filled the lobby, bright and steady. He paused and looked back one last time. The hotel no longer felt like a reminder of disrespect. It felt like proof that people can change, that dignity can be rebuilt, and that power, when used right, could lift everyone higher. Out on the street, his driver opened the car door, but Marcus took one last look at the shining sign above the entrance. Grand Crest Hotel, the brand he built not just on luxury, but on lessons. And this time, it truly lived up to its name.